So last night I watched The Flash, and I'm going to be straight up honest. This film is not going to save DC. It is not going to save cinema, and it definitely will not redeem Ezra Miller. I thought this film was absolute hot trash. I never had a lot of hope for this film because all the controversy surrounding Ezra Miller. But then the trailers came out, and I have to admit I got hooked on the Michael Keaton return. The nostalgia got me. I thought all the stuff with him looked pretty cool. And then I watched the film, and by God, I didn't think it would be this bad. I'm gonna have this review as just a spoiler talk because I don't even care. I need to say everything about this film. It opens like the opening action scene where the Flash is saving the day, and then oh my God, he saves a bunch of CGI babies falling from a hospital, but the CGI is absolutely terrible. You've probably heard some reviews of people saying, "Oh, the CGI is a bit inconsistent." The whole film, everything looks like Play-Doh. It's like a PS2 cutscene. The CGI is just absolutely terrible. And then you have about 7 CGI babies falling from a hospital, and Ezra Miller's there saving them all, and he puts one of them into a microwave. Like, who thought of that? Like, I sat there and I looked at my friend and I said, Ezra Miller has probably done that in real life. Like, they've probably actually put a baby in a microwave, and that's probably why it's in the film. They probably suggested it, unless the director or writer wanted it. But I don't know who can sit there and think, you know what the Flash film needs? A bunch of CGI babies falling, and then Ezra Miller is going to put one into a microwave to save them. It baffles me. It was honestly one of the most goofy things I've ever seen in cinema. I don't know why they thought that was acceptable to put into the film. Imagine the CGI from like the Son of the Mask of the baby whenever it's animated and dancing around, or even the CGI of the Twilight baby. Imagine that, but 7 of them and a lot worse. But that same CGI is consistent throughout the whole film. Even when the two Barrys are together, one of them will have this weird animated face that looks like it's hovering. When he goes into the Speed Force and he's traveling through time, it does this. It will show scenes from the past, but instead of just showing archive footage like a normal film would, they CGI all the characters. Like, you'll see a CGI Henry Cavill, you'll see a CGI Aquaman, and it's just so gross looking. I know some people will be like, "Oh, just look past the CGI. The film's good." I can't look past the CGI. It is that terrible. It's so distracting and just laughable. Every time it was on screen, it just took me out of the film, and I just had to laugh and look at my friend and be like, "This is so stupid." I want to know how much Tom Cruise was paid to say that this film is going to save cinema, because apparently he had an early screening and he called the director and he said, "Wow, this film is fantastic. It's going to save cinema. It's what cinema needs right now." I need to know how much he was paid, because this film is terrible. Tom Cruise, you cannot convince me that Tom Cruise sat down and watched this film and said it was amazing, unless like Ezra Miller is also in the Scientology cult and putting babies in microwaves is just what they do for food, or it's a way to sacrifice a baby to worship their alien overlord Zenu or whatever. But you cannot convince me that Tom Cruise liked this film. You cannot convince me Stephen King liked this film. James Gunn saying how it's one of the best superhero films ever made. No, it's not. It doesn't come anywhere near to the levels of The Dark Knight, Into the Spider-Verse, or even Across the Spider-Verse, which came out 2 weeks before The Flash. Does the whole multiverse storyline and does it way better. I wouldn't even take The Flash over some of the X-Men films. A majority of MCU films beat it. I'll take some of the old Marvel films like Blade and stuff. Those beat it. The original Spider-Man trilogy beats it. I don't know where people are saying it's one of the best superhero films, because I just thought it was absolutely terrible. In terms of plot, they are adapting the Flashpoint Paradox storyline from the comics, which, that was used as a way to reboot the comics. There was an animated film of it, and that was to reboot the animated films they were doing. But this film does not do it justice at all. Obviously, they chose it because they want to reboot the whole DC universe, and then they can now with James Gunn and his new rebooted universe. But this film did not do it justice. It was way too early to do a storyline like this. It's the first Flash film. We needed all the setup. It's like if X-Men started with Days of Future Past. It's just stupid. You wouldn't go for your biggest event and put it as your first film. You're just blowing your load too soon. But this film just does not do it justice. The thing that made the Flashpoint storyline great is because you're already, familiar with all these characters, and then you see how much changes because Barry makes this small change in the past, and it affects the whole universe, and you're like, holy shit, because the Atlanteans and the Amazons are all at war with each other. Bruce Wayne's dead. Thomas Wayne is Batman. All that stuff is cool. It's like, holy shit, this much has changed. But you don't get that feeling in the film because the DC as a whole has been terrible, and it's too soon to do something, so you don't actually care about the changes they have made. Like, yeah, it is cool seeing Michael Keaton again, but it wasn't needed. Like, well, probably was needed because it does kind of save the film. It's one of the few redeeming qualities of the film. But, it's just really underwhelming. And the way his mom is killed is because she forgets tomatoes at the store, so his dad goes out to get them, and then someone comes in and kills her. But you never see who killed her. You don't see the reverse flash or anything. You don't know if it is the reverse flash that killed her. She's just kind of got a knife in her. His dad comes back, gets framed, So the way Barry has to save her and he messes up the timeline is he travels to the store, puts the tomatoes into her basket and goes, "Don't forget the tomatoes," and then goes away and everything's changed. And at the end, the way he fixes the day is he comes back, speaks to her, takes the tomatoes out of her trolley and puts it back on the shelf. I was thinking, this is just so silly and goofy, and it just did not do the story justice at all. Now, the whole third act of this film is just a complete mess. It's kind of like they threw a bunch of shit at the wall and hoped at least something would stick, and it just doesn't. It just slopped straight off. It's just so messy. Everything's happening at once. They're constantly travelling back in time, changing different things, and then eventually the multiverse is breaking, and then the worlds collide, and this is when they throw in all their multiversal cameos for, nostalgia bait. And it just feels wrong because you'll see Christopher Reeves, but it's this CGI render of him that looks terrible. It's another PS2 graphic scene. And then you see Nicolas Cage Superman because, the whole Superman Lives thing. You see that, and it's, oh my god, it's also CGI rendered. Only DC CGI renders all the actors. They couldn't just record him and, put it in and have it as real footage instead of him being just a CGI render that looks like plastic that's melting. It's honestly ridiculous. I'm sorry that this review is basically just a massive rant about the film, but I just did not enjoy this film, and I'm really annoyed that I wasted time on it. If you like this film, that is completely okay. You're allowed to like this film. But for me, I just thought it was hot trash. No wonder it was in development hell for like 10 years. This version of the film with Ezra Miller has been in development for like 10 years. And it was constantly getting new directors. Writers were dropping out, directors were dropping out. I think it's just a canon event. This film is not meant to be. And somehow Andy Muschietti came along and broke the canon and released this film. This film was not meant to be. It is just trash. I thought the humour was too slapstick. It just felt really goofy. Like, I don't need to see Michael Keaton dressed as Batman whipping out a tape measure as a gadget. That just feels like something that Adam West Batman would do. It just felt really silly. But that's pretty much all the humour in this film. It's just really silly. Like, there's a part where the Flash loses his powers and then he goes to do his run and he's just flopping his arms around the room. And it's like, yeah, they're taking the piss out of how Ezra Miller runs as a Flash because he runs like an absolute douchebag and a wet noodle. But it is just stupid. You don't need to point out how stupid it is. And then I'll get in with all the characters that come back in this film just felt pointless. Zod. Why did Zod come back? I know that Michael Shannon has recently said he was disappointed with the film, and I can understand why. Zod is absolutely underused in this film. I thought Michael Keaton was kind of used okay. Supergirl was pointless. Ben Affleck was pointless. Gal Gadot was pointless. Jason Momoa appears in the post-credit scene, which is just a terrible post-credit scene and is not worth waiting around for. It's just a lot of this film did not work for me. If it works for you, that is okay, but I don't think I would ever watch this film again. And weirdly, the only cameo, I think the cameo that was the best, and it's the only time I was actually laughing with the movie, was at the end, when the Flash comes back and saves the day, he's going to meet Bruce Wayne, and instead of Ben Affleck stepping out, it's George Clooney, and Barry goes, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And that's the only time I actually laugh with the film. When George Clooney Batman is the best thing about your film, that is how you know it is bad, you know. But to be honest, as a kid, I spent a whole day watching Batman and Robin, like probably 9 times. I used to love that film as a kid. I know it's absolutely terrible now, but him coming back as Batman was actually the best part of this film for me. Like, that was the funniest part. That was the only time I laughed with it. I guess I'll talk about Ezra Miller's performance. I just thought they were annoying. You know, they were annoying in Justice League, both versions, and they were annoying in this. But this time we've got 2 of them, because, you know, they do the classic thing of, oh, we'll introduce a younger version of him that's more annoying, so the older one's forced to develop and you like him more. But both are just annoying. The only problem is we're stuck with 2 Ezra Millers, so that's just an absolute crime on humanity. The Earth does not need that right now. There's too much going on. But I don't know how the costume designer said that their performance will, you know, redeem all the things they've done. I don't know what film that costume designer watched, but it's not going to redeem Ezra Miller. They need to be charged. They need to be locked away. They should not be allowed to act again. They should not be allowed to be the Flash again. You know, get Grant Gustin to be the Flash in live action films. He's the best version of the character, and he was meant to have a cameo in this, which was apparently cut, which I think is because people would watch it and they go, that's the Flash right there, not Ezra Miller. Grant Gustin is the Flash. And the Flash TV show does the whole storyline way better. It's a better version of the character. There's more emotion. I'm talking about season 1 and 2, because I didn't actually watch anything else because it just looked terrible. But season 1 and 2 was good. And then you actually feel the emotion with his mom more. You know, he has a better relationship with her. You feel the emotion when he goes back in time to save her, but then doesn't. And that's a TV show written by the CW. Like, somehow that is better. This film has worse writers than the CW. So yeah, that's my opinion on The Flash. Honestly, I would say don't waste your time on this film. It's not worth it. It's not going to change your life like they were saying before. It's just another terrible DC film. They really need a course correction. DC do. It's just awful. If you're gonna watch a Flash film, watch the Flashpoint Paradox cartoon. That film was actually like really good. It adapts the storyline way better, does all the characters better. Just watch the Flashpoint Paradox. It's really good. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, there's a scene in this film where the younger Barry Allen phases through the floor naked, and he ends up in this old woman's apartment and scares her whilst he's naked, which I'm pretty sure Ezra Miller has done in real life. All the things that he does in this film just makes it a lot funnier, knowing what they are like in real life. So yeah, I'm sorry if this felt like a rant. I don't really write scripts. I just kind of record and rant and just say whatever during the reviews. So yeah, if you want to watch the film, if you enjoy it, that's great. Let me know in the comments. If you hate it, put it in the comments. I'll agree with you. We'll talk together about how crap the film is. But yeah, that was my review. Thanks for watching.